Welcome. And I think this is probably one of the few times that I can remember ever Kiwi Rail being here, James. Can I? I think there might have been one other occasion in my time sitting around this table. But yeah, look, really cool to have you here, and thank you for coming. And this is, obviously a big part of our district with the national main trunk line running through the middle of our town and things like that. And the transport systems and passenger rail and things like that are a big part of our district and our future. So, really keen to understand the future and where it's going and what's going on. So, I assume James is going to introduce things. So, over to you, James.
Thank you, Bernie. Yes, I'm introducing Alex and Diane from Kiwi Rail. They're here to talk to you about the project that will basically see the increase in passenger services between Levin, most importantly, and Wellington, but also Palmerston North, I believe. There'll be some details about what the level of service will be in the future, but the work that we've been delivering with Kiwi Rail is assessing the level crossings through our districts. It's, I think 24, 25 or something like in that department. Level crossings we've been looking at, and there's a bit of a risk assessment process where we look at the impact of more passenger services on the level crossings and look at potential safety improvements or changes to the level crossings. But I'll leave it up to the experts to take it from here.
Thank you, James. Everyone can hear me all right? Great.
Just you make sure you use that because there might be people on Zoom.
Yeah, no problem. I will do that. Thanks for letting us come along and talk to you all today. Today, we just wanted to give you an update on the Lower North Island rail project and what it means for Horowhenua. We'll particularly focus on the rail infrastructure side that Kiwi Rail is delivering, but happy to talk about the train services as well, as much as we are involved in them. So I'll give this short presentation. I'm happy for you to interrupt me as we go or save questions for the end. Quite easy on that front. So Greater Wellington Regional Council, Horizons Regional Council and the government have joined forces to purchase new trains for the Horowhenua line. That's the North Island main trunk from Wellington to Palmerston and the widened upper line. The idea here is to replace the existing fleet of trains, which have had a few rebuilds over the years and all that sort of thing and facelifts, but fundamentally they date back to the 1970s. They can't keep going forever, and the idea is to buy brand new trains to replace the existing trains, but also to be able to increase the number of services. So the idea is to buy 18 battery electric trains. The idea will be that on the electrified part of the metro railway out of Wellington, so from Wellington to Waikanae and Wellington to Upper Hutt, those trains will operate using the overhead wires, which are already there. They draw their power down from that system. But then beyond the metro network, as we get into the more regional parts of the system, the trains will operate on batteries. So that's from Waikanae north to Palmerston and from Upper Hutt north to Masterton. There's currently one train, as most of you will be aware, the Capital Connection, that runs from Palmerston north to Wellington and return every weekday. With these new services, we'll see an increase to 4 return trains a day in the weekday, and they'll also introduce a passenger service, so there'll be 2 return passenger services as well. The idea really is more choice for commuters. The idea is to encourage some mode shift to rail from road. There's safety benefits from this, brings the regions closer together. It's with the battery electric system, that's a much lower carbon form of transport option available to people. So there's a whole range of benefits that come from introducing these new trains. In terms of when it's all happening, the government has provided initial funding for the project in the middle of last year, and that was so that Kiwi Rail could work through the scoping of the infrastructure that would be needed on the rail side to support running these new trains, track and signals and platforms, things like that. I'll go into a bit more detail. At the same time, Greater Wellington have gone out and started a procurement process to figure out who's going to be manufacturing these trains. So there's a panel of international train manufacturers who are bidding for the work. And both of those processes are supposed to wrap up by June of this year for final government approval before we can then go into, on the KiwiRail side, designing and then constructing the infrastructure and for GW to purchase those trains. It takes a while to manufacture a train and deliver it. So at this stage, it's looking like the first train's arriving for testing from late 2027. And then they'll start to roll those trains out and replace the existing, what we call the locomotive hauled trains, the existing trains, first on the Wairarapa line, because that's where the depot will be for servicing the new fleet of trains, and then replacing the capital connection after that in early 2029. After all of the old trains are out of service and enough of the new trains are in the country, they'll roll out the full increase in the service levels from January of 2030 is the plan. So in terms of KiwiRail's role in this at the moment, we currently operate the capital connection service. We won't be operating the new service. That will be operated by Greater Wellington Regional Council. It makes sense for a bunch of efficiency reasons. They run through Metlink, they run the trains in Wellington. It makes sense for them to operate the new services as well. Just have one operator there. But what we will be doing is building the new infrastructure to support the new trains. So once you leave Waikanae, move north along the main trunk, it's a single track railway, which means that if you want to get freight trains and passenger trains past each other, you need some places where there's double track to get these trains around. And we have a bunch of those already, but some of them need to be extended and we need to build a new place for this passing to happen. So we're looking at building a crossing loop at Kuku, just south of the Ohau River, and extending the existing loops at Koputaroa and Tokomaru. We're also looking at, we just need more space for more trains to be stored. We have, so overnight, the trains are stored in Palmerston North Yard. We need some more track there to store those trains. It's the same in Wellington, it's the same in Masterton as well. There's some station platforms that need to be upgraded to make sure that they're the right height for the new trains and the right length for longer trains. Most of the ones on the Manawatu line have already been done. Otaki, Levin, Palmerston North. There's some more work that needs to be done at Shannon to make that a station platform which is long enough and high enough for people to board. And then we have Greater Wellington Regional Council will also be building some infrastructure. They'll be doing the upgrades of the actual station buildings themselves. So they've got some plans for Otaki and Levin stations to upgrade those facilities as well. And they'll be doing similar in the Wairarapa. But the big thing that we'll be doing in this region that you see more of is work on the level crossings. So when we're introducing new trains, we have to go through and make sure that when we're introducing those services, we are managing the safety impact of that. More trains can mean more of an issue for collisions with cars and with people. And so what we've done is we're going through the line. We've done a similar thing recently in the Wairarapa as well. So we're looking at what we call a whole of line level crossing assessment. We get an independent consultant who has expertise in this to go through and look at the risks of introducing the new trains. And we've gone through and we've been working with your council staff who have been fantastic. Thank you. You've been wonderful people to deal with. And other road users, so people like the police, the Heavy Haulage Association, Frontiera, to understand how they use it, understand what existing issues are, and start to understand what other things are happening in the community which should be taken into account at the same time. You know, development in the town centre in Levin. There's obviously the Otaki to North Levin highway project, which has a big impact on where cars are coming from and to, that sort of thing. And then, so we've done a bunch of workshops at the end of last year, the start of this year, on all of that work. That work's all coming together and they're collating their final reports on that so they can make recommendations to us on the type of improvements we should make to the crossings. In terms of the type of thing we're dealing with, there's 33 public crossings between Waikanae and Palmerston North. A lot of these are rural, just the nature of the places that we're going through. Some of these just have what we call passive protection. That's just a sign saying level crossing coming up, that sort of thing. And 25 of them have some form of an active warning, so a combination of lights, bells, barrier arms, that sort of thing. And then once you get into the more urban areas, particularly in Levin, you have a different set of risks to look at in terms of pedestrians and cyclists crossing the railway as well. There's quite a few level crossings going through the town centre. And luckily for you guys, most of the level crossings are in the Horowhenua district. I think it's 75% of the crossings on this line just happen to be within the Horowhenua boundaries. Again, it's a mix of those urban and rural locations. But in terms of the risk profile, a lot of it is around Levin Township and making sure that we're, particularly with more people coming, starting to focus on going to the railway station, all that sort of thing, that we're managing that risk properly. We are integrating what we're doing with the Otaki to North Levin Highway project, as we talked about. I'm sure a number of you are aware, they're doing some work on level crossing at the south end of town, Cambridge Street, I believe, in terms of moving that slightly south to align it with one of the roads there. And we'll be looking at doing some work on some of the others. The final work that we'll do will come out of this report, but I would expect it would more focus on the pedestrian side of things rather than the road itself. They've all got barriers and bells and lights and all that sort of thing on them, more around making the typical thing that we might kind of do to give you an idea as to put what we call a maze on the pedestrian side, so that when people approach, it makes people look up and off their phone or off just the road itself and actually see a train coming before they cross over the railway. So when we've finished this report, we'll be sharing it with your teams as well, so we can work through it. We're particularly keen to make sure that we know that you have plans for the town centre and we want to be able to take any opportunities there are to work together on things through there. You know, if you guys have got work that's happening in next to the rail corridor at the same time, sometimes that can be expensive things to do because of the things we need to do to work safely around the railway. And we'd be really keen to, align both of those bits of work so that, there's opportunities to make things cheaper and easier for you guys to do work, and we're just taking the needs of the local community into account as we go. That's the end of my formal presentation, but happy to take any questions on what we want to do with the crossings, with the trains, the new services.
Genuinely, thanks for being here. I think this has been one of these, at a governance level, where I think this has been one of the relationships we've been really keen to grow and maintain, because one of the challenges I think we have is that we often view interaction with your corridor in an ad hoc sort of operational way, as the team should be. But at a governance level, there is, it's both a constraint but also an opportunity, right? In terms of, we've got the town centre, we've got Horowhenua and the downstream impacts from that. And I think that's probably my interest, is how do we navigate the Kiwi Rail machine or organisation, and I don't know if it is in terms of an ongoing relationship with you both in terms of meeting with us, but articulating our aspiration for how things interact with the corridor, because certainly thinking like town centre, we probably don't agree with some of the thinking from Greater Wellington around location of the railway station. We think there's a broader opportunity. There's obviously reserve Kiwi Rail land that could be we could utilise, ideally if you gave permission for car parking, for pathways, and that kind of thing. So I guess what I'm asking in a long-winded way is, how do we have those conversations with you that's where we can say, this is our vision, this is what good looks like to us, this is what's on our wish list. We know that you're not going to be able to do everything, but how do you help us navigate the conversations that we need to have
on the different pieces of the puzzle? It's an excellent question, because Kiwi Rail's it's a complicated business, and you can find yourself interacting with all, just as you were talking, I was thinking, there's one with the property department, there's another one with the regional team out of Palmerston North, there's another one with Greater Wellington around. It can be really hard to just know who to talk to. I think this project provides a bit of an opportunity for a team that's got a bit of robustness to it in terms of the size of it to help have those things. So we could be like that first point of contact for those conversations, and also a bit of a champion view within our own organisation to say, hey, there's some good community outcomes here to our people. How can we facilitate this, rather than chasing your tail, not necessarily at the right level in the organisation. So we're happy to facilitate that through this project. Yeah.
If there's nothing else that comes out of today, that's great news, because I think it's that connecting with the right people at the right time, and we know that some of our ideas might be, like Kiwi Rail, like, wow, that's too much. But at least if we're on the table, we can kind of collaborate and kind of solution find together.
Yeah.
Because certainly town centre is a key focus, but that Tararua, Cambridge, so the northern, southern end of the cross corridor connection to the what will become the old South Highway, is really, really critical, and it's it's an important part of the conversation that we are having with NZTA around revocation. What does that look like? Our forecast and modelling suggest a certain amount of usage. They're looking at a different forecasting, and so we're trying to future-proof these solutions as well, and making sure that we're connecting with the right people with the right information at the right time is part of the challenge. So thanks very much for the willingness to do it.
That's right, and maybe on a different scale, but we've done some similar stuff with Carterton District Council as an example, where we've gone, look, we've got this project coming through doing this work. They also had aspirations around cycleway that had to cross the railway. We went, well, why don't we align the type? They had funding for their work, we had funding for ours. Why don't we align the stuff so that it all happens at the same time? You get the efficiencies and you get a joined up outcome out of the thing. Yeah.
Can I just say, I'm here, I work in the comms and engagement area, which is why I'm here with Alex today. And like that one?
Yep.
Thank you. Like the Carterton example, we worked with their comms team, and are also making sure the community knows what's going on. So just really happy to work together, help out, make the connections for sure.
It's interesting because when I go to my regional meetings, there's generally someone that flies down from Auckland or is on Zoom from Auckland, which means that sort of sometimes you feel there's a disconnect in terms of actually what is happening on the ground in a region is against your, if I call it, do you call it the ivory tower in Auckland type of thing. And I'm just curious around why Greater Wellington would be willing to take on, or accept that they're going to control the capital connection in terms of, one, the relationship with Horizons, but also knowing that what NZT are reducing the FAR rate, if you like, or the support rate for the current capital connection, and it's now going to be an added cost to ratepayers here to maintain one train over, for the next 5 or 6 years. And why would anyone want to, public transport's generally not a money-making exercise. It's not something that you can actually even cover your costs on generally. Where does Kiwi Rail it almost like Kiwi Rail saying, well, this is going to cost us a lot of money, so let's move all the responsibility over to a regional council and they can rate accordingly to try and cover the costs. My thinking is out of whack, or is that right?
It could be. I'm not across all of the politics of the decision making and that who's contributing what. Historically, Kiwi Rail has run the capital connection service because it's not wholly within Greater Wellington's remit, right? And then in terms of the contributing parties to this, you have the Crown, which is most of the funding, GW and Horizons. And they've got together and said we want to run this train service. GW and have done for some time. They put the money into and they run the passenger service in Wellington. and all the way up to Masterton as well. So it's logical from a operational point of view for them to do this bit as well. And this project is their baby, really. I mean, they've developed the business case, they put forward the case for it, and they've gone and got the money. KiwiRail hasn't. We're happy to have, but we're a supporting party to that in terms of the infrastructure side. Most of KiwiRail's business is we run the infrastructure for any type of train, but we also run freight trains, right? And then in Auckland and Wellington, it's the councils, AT and GW, that do the actual operation of the metro passenger trains. So it's really an extension of that partnership.
Yeah, because I mean, over the years, there's been many sort of studies done on terms of the cost and operation of the Capital Connection. It's been threatened. Its service has been threatened a number of times. And what I suppose we're trying to ensure is that the commitment to, continue to operate that service is not going to be can we do it this year or not? We're going to have to, and in the end, it'll be the ratepayers of the area that'll be paying for it, rather than that sort of wider transport support that comes from NZTA or KiwiRail, whatever it is, and that we could be disadvantaged in the long term because we're buying into a new system that's going to have a lot more trains, and if the usage is only, it won't be immediate. Probably it takes some time to gain some traction. Then it's the ratepayers that could be affected significantly in terms of that, and they'll have no choice. And it's a bit of a risk, I think, in terms of where we sit with the rail. I know we need it. We badly need some sort of passenger transport around both train, bus, the whole works. But how it all fits together is going to be key.
I mean, I don't have the answers for that because it's a bit out of my remit, and I don't know what sort of conversations that HDC have been having with either Horizons or GW, but we're happy to make those connections if that's going to be helpful, because it's a legitimate point of conversation.
With me? Cool. Welcome. It's good to have someone talking to us about rail. We've got a road being built, so it's good to actually hear about rail. I've got a question. Is there, from an operational sense, is the cost for freight trains significantly different between freight and passenger? And would that determine a route that a rail or you would send freight through? So if you had a choice between railing in through, say, Masterton or the Wairarapa and through the Horowhenua into Wellington, what option or route would you choose to take?
Is this thing on? Yeah. Most of it, I mean, the line north from Masterton through to Pahiatua, to complete that link at the moment is what we call mothballed. It's not in use because there aren't regular services running on it. They haven't been for a while. There used to be regular freight services from, I think it was Wellington through to Napier. But generally, most of the freight going up and down the spine of the North Island goes down this line. And so that line's basically held ready for an anchor customer to come along and use that. Say logs going north from the Wairarapa to Napier Port, that sort of thing. It depends on the relationships with the different ports and who's got the contracts. So, I mean, it really comes down to distance. Most of that freight is going to go up the main trunk because it's a shorter route, and that's the main thing. It's just the timing for the customer rather than there being a big differential in the cost between either of them.
I guess where I was trying to understand or go with this is that when I Google services between Wellington and Masterton, I get that Monday to Thursday there are 5 services each way, 3 peak, 2 off peak. On a Friday they do it 6 times. On a Saturday they already do it twice each way, and on public holidays. You Google Wellington to live in, what do we get now? And I get what you're telling us is coming by 2030, potentially.
Yeah, 29.
It still does in comparison to, again, 5 services each way a day.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand that level of lack of investment to rail services, particularly for our district, in comparison to a district that is quite like-sized.
It's a good question, because if you look at the catchment areas in terms of the amount of people that live there, there are more people in the Wairarapa. My take on it is that some of this is historical. There was already an established service there. It was already run by Greater Wellington. It's all in their remit already. So there was a bit more of that focus. And the line was more set up for it. On the main trunk line, it needs more work on the infrastructure side in terms of those loops and things like that to get the railway to a point where it's ready to run those extra trains and bring it up to the level of service where you can use it properly. Interesting, in the original, I think there was 2 rounds of business case that went up. The original business case that GW put in went in for 22 trains rather than 18. And then it was somewhere that was knocked back in the final submission, and those extra trains were for the Manawatu services. But that came with needing a lot more investment in the core corridor, so a lot of double tracking through the 20 or 30 k's of it to make it suitable for getting those trains around each other. So there's there needs to be another step change in the level of investment in the infrastructure before you could run those extra services. But it was definitely in the original business case, yes.
I peeked at the word shifting something south. So obviously we're a town that's severed by a rail line. And so you mentioned about Liverpool Street crossing and a view to shifting south. What is the thinking in that space? And secondly, you also mentioned bridges and a certain bridge at Kuku that you may need to navigate with the rail solution. And I'm keen to understand, has there been any level of discussion with our friends from Waka Kotahi who are following you a little bit later today about what a bridge solution would like, particularly if it was considered as an aspect as part of a roading solution? James has got.
Yeah, I might just jump in there. So I think Councillor Grimstone is referring to the Tararua level crossing, which you briefly mentioned. So that's part of O2NL. It's not work that's going to be delivered through this Kiwi Rail project.
Yeah. With the Kuku solution, so we won't be touching the bridge over the Ohau River. It's further south again, and that was just trying to geographically place it. At the moment, there's a crossing loop at Ohau. It's got 2 level crossings through it. There's a private one going to there's a quarry site in there, and then there's what's the name of that street in Bishop's Road, thank you, in Ohau, which is it's a bit of a dangerous crossing. As part of this work, if we can, it's a very short crossing loop there. There's all sorts of reasons why it's not a great place for it. So we kind of want to replace the functionality of that one with this other one just south of the river at Kuku. It's a better place in terms of getting all the trains past each other, and it means that the work that we do around those crossings at Ohau will be simpler to make it a safer site there. But no, we're not planning on touching the bridge itself. Yep.
Just following on from that, is there a likely outcome of the process, the report, recommending closing of any crossings?
It's come up, and that's always the controversial thing. But and through discussions with some of the different councils, there has been some of the councils have said, oh, maybe we could consider closing this one for X, Y, and Z reason. There hasn't been any come up yet which has said we would need to close it from a rail perspective. When we were working in the Wairarapa, we did end up closing some crossings, and that was there was a lot more crossings in a lot more towns. It's not quite the same situation here. So just per kilometre there was a lot more of them, and it's a lot more dangerous. The main trunk's not quite the same situation. So there are some options for where we could. I don't think we need to as part of this. So if when the report comes out, we'll come and talk through the different options about what we want to do. But I don't think there's anything from a rail perspective where we'd be really pushing for something if it's not something the council doesn't want.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I think that any proposals to close crossings would be quite sensitive from a community perspective. A little bit like fencing alongside rail corridor in the urban area, and they're probably issues that we'd be keen to be looped in as early as possible, because obviously there's an operational impact, but there's also a community advocacy component to that. Last thing on my list was just, are you able to talk to kind of the medium or long-term future or function and purpose of the rail yards in Levin? So that's between obviously Liverpool Street and alongside Cambridge there. Like, what is the long-term functionality or intent of those yards? Because obviously there is, there's potential. There may be aspirations for us to realign roads or do other things. Obviously the train station's there at the moment. Is it the long-term future there? Are you able to speak to the yards and what the purpose of them is?
I actually don't know what the plans for I know what you're talking about. It's the old railway yards and which don't get a lot of use these days. And I'm not across what the future plans are for that yard in terms of using the space. But we can certainly have some conversations within Kiwi Rail and find out. Yep.
Thank you. Looks like it. But hopefully this is not the last last conversation that we have, and that we can regularly see you and get these sorts of updates, because often we find sometimes as a governance team we don't necessarily we aren't party to the conversations, obviously the team are having them behind the scenes, but great for us to be able to ask some of those questions in terms of our community advocacy and understand what's going on. And as you've heard, with the road coming, there's some big conversations around how it all fits in and aligns with our future, because we are growing and we are going to get better, and the need for those sort of connections are going to be really important for us. So, yeah, look, appreciate your time today and thank you for coming up.
No, thank you very much. It's it is, the idea was to establish the relationship, explain who we are, what we're doing, and more than happy to come back. And I mean, as I said, your people have been great to work with, so it's not a difficulty.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much.